Welcome everyone to Midwest Tree ID. On this channel, it is my mission to help you learn an abundance of trees that grow right here in the Midwest, and some key features on how to identify them. There's just one thing to clarify before we begin. We're not going to be throwing hatred or ridiculing any of the species that we're going to be talking about. But we do, however, want to encourage thoughtful conversation in the comments about personal experiences and things like that. Please try to remember that everything has value and that we are here to enjoy nature and everything it has to offer. So without anything else, let's jump right in. Welcome back, everybody. We are in Carl Park in Urbana, Illinois, and we are talking about Acer saccharum. This is the sugar maple. This is probably going to be one of our favorite native maples to look at. Now, it can strongly resemble the Norway maple by the leaf. The leaf is going to be rather large, and it's going to have 3 dominant lobes and 2 smaller lobes towards the base of the leaf. And unlike the Norway maple, which we kind of featured a little bit, the sugar maple is not going to have this milky white sap that comes out of the broken leaf petiole. That's going to be one of the big key characteristics if you're looking at the leaves, because the leaves themselves are very difficult to distinguish apart from Norway maple. They're dark green, quite dark green, and the larger lobing is not always easy to tell apart. And I don't have one cut here. I could grab one. Is a little bit more of the stems. But we didn't really feature the stems very much on the Norway maple either, but well, we won't do it right now. But the stems on the sugar maple are much more slender than the Norway maple. It tends to be a little bit thicker and a little bit stout. But they're very, very similar species. And we'll go ahead and take a look at the bark of the sugar maple, which is going to be another key differentiating feature from the Norway maple. And then we'll look at the habit. So the bark on our sugar maples is typically going to be a little bit more platy to almost looking like it's peeling off. As you can kind of see here, it almost looks like it's peeling, but it's very, you can't really flake it off very well. It's not going to be real fishery or it's not really going to be fishery like our Norway maples. Much more, like I said, platy, even a little bit having a look of peeling. This is kind of peeling a little bit, but yeah, that's going to be one very key characteristic of the sugar maple bark that differentiates it from Norway maple. So sugar maple tends to be a little bit much more of a straighter trunk than the Norway maple, which can be a little bit more picturesque than the sugar maples, I think. But your sugar maple is still going to have a nice rounded canopy, and it can be quite dense, much like a Norway maple. It can be kind of difficult sometimes if you have smaller areas that you're trying to grow sugar maples. It might be tough to grow grass underneath it. But yeah, the nice dark foliage and a little bit more heavy shading can really shade out the grass pretty abundantly. The sugar maple is native to pretty much all of the Midwest. You'll find it pretty frequently in most of your native forests around this area. And so it can be a pretty common use in the landscape. In fact, according to Champaign-Urbana's tree planting data, it is, I believe it's number 3, the third most commonly planted tree in the city. And that's probably consistently true for other towns around us: Bloomington, Springfield, Decatur. Probably very, very similar stats on that. But yes, again, it is used very frequently as a lawn tree. Does very well. It does have a tendency sometimes, and it's not quite as fragile as, say, a Norway maple or the silver maples, but it can have a tendency to have problems breaking out due to storm damage a little bit more frequently than what you would expect. But for the most part, you can't go wrong with the sugar maple. And quite frankly, it's one of the greatest trees in the Midwest for fall color. You'll get lots of oranges and even some yellows and a little bit of red in there. Really fantastic for fall color. So I think that's pretty much going to wrap it up for the sugar maple today. Be sure to like and subscribe, and we will see you guys next time.